Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Cellar Talks. It's today episode number 2 of season 2, and we're gonna talk about nice and famous vineyard winery in the south of the Rhône, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and it's Château de la Solitude. So in a moment I will ask our guest to join us, and in the meanwhile, obviously, if you have questions, like always, you can drop your questions in the question box on the bottom. So give me a couple of minutes while I'm getting Florent Lancon in the show for us. And in the meanwhile, if you want to share what you're drinking, obviously everybody is drinking a glass of wine, then that would be nice for me to know as well, because I'll be enjoying one of the red wines they have, but maybe somebody else is drinking a nice Rhône wine or even a Châteauneuf-du-Pape as well. So tell us what you're doing and what you're drinking. In the meanwhile, we're waiting for Florent, so just a minute. Hello, Florent.
Hi, Neil. How are
Hello.
you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. What about you?
Very well. I was wondering where you were because it's 34 and
It's well,
I was
normally we are
thinking
very
in.
punctual in Holland, but today we're not so punctual. So
Yeah, you should be punctual. I'm from the south of France. I'm always late, but you not.
you were already a little bit stressed, eh? I mean, I can see the anxiousness in your face, huh? So we need to drink a glass of wine to get that out of the way. But you have already something very good. I have
Yes.
something as well because they told me that I should give it some good air. So it's been open for a while now, but we'll come to that later. Thank you for making some time, and nice to have you in the show. So you're the second guest of season 2, and after last week we were in Germany with Wittmann. We're going in a very different direction now, because south of Rhône, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, I think there is.
Yeah, you're crossing Europe.
I think there is not much of a bigger difference between Riesling from Wittmann and Rheinhessen and Châteauneuf-du-Pape. But well, let's hear what you guys are doing, because I think a lot of people are curious, and I'm also very curious because, like I said, it's a very different region, different wines, but you have also a shared thing, a nice long history in the winery. So maybe you want to start with an introduction about yourself and the winery, but let's in general introduce you first.
Yes, so I'm Florent Lancon. I'm a member of the family who owns the Domaine de la Solitude. So we were a very old estate from the 17th century, so I'm the 8th generation, and I'm the one in charge at the moment. So before me, that was my father and my uncle, and they are retired now. And so I have my 4 decades to do my best, and I will pass to the next generation.
And when did you start? When were you starting fully in charge? Because you're working for a long time.
You know, it's a family business, so
it doesn't go like one moment.
No, it's not. You get the job, but you never really get the job until until the end.
Yeah, until the last one goes.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to say
They're
that.
always there.
Exactly. So I started to work in 2008, and yeah, I can say maybe 2012, 2014. Those vintage start to be 100% mine. But I still have to move millimeter after millimeter to gain my place.
And you're in a very historical place, so also that's not always giving you. Maybe you don't. It depends per person. When I talk to winemakers, especially if it's a family-owned company, how much they would like to change. Some say, okay, I don't feel the need to change because there is so much history. I don't want to do something. But everybody has a little bit their own ideas, maybe.
So I think yes, every generation have to print. Make his print, but it's also why it's interesting to take some time to think about what you do and doesn't get the jobs in the first 2 years, because we are a very historical domain, and if I was really in charge in 2008, just fresh from school, maybe I did some mistake, but hopefully my parents were still there and say, no, stop, don't change everything, wait, understand more, and they were correct. So
and every year is different, so every vintage learns you new things as well.
So my goal when I start to work, I have two ideas. One of them I just achieved it this year. It's my background is from university background. I was studying tropical rainforest, so nothing really linked to the wine business. But I decided after a master's degree to go back to the winemaking school. So it's two years studying. Mm-hmm. And my goal was really to go in the organic certification and really to be one of the domain of Châteauneuf-du-Pape, as shows the direction for what should be the future of the wine growing, respect the nature, respect the environment, grow my vineyard in the most sustainable way. Mm-hmm. And my other goal, I will never achieve it, is to be the best, but
it's a good ambition.
You never achieve that,
if you don't have
do your best every year.
Easily satisfied.
Yeah, I'm always insatisfied. Always want to do better.
That's a good thing. So you also want to improve with every vintage, every bottle that comes out. You have a goal to make it better.
And I have a big problem. I wish I can be a chef, and repeat my meal 300 times and to get it right. But maybe I will have 40 vintage. That's it. So it's very few chance to understand everything and to be perfect. But
it's also nice that you have all the challenges, right? I mean, you learn all the time, basically.
Yeah, you learn all the time, and I mean, perfection is not interesting. It's also the way to arrive to perfection. Every year you can more increase your quality. Some small change will make the difference after 2 or 3 years. So
I agree. I totally agree. But talking about change, but also first about history, the family domain. Can you take us a little bit back on how it started? Because it's been in the family for a long while, but there is a long history attached to it.
Yeah, a very long history with many interesting points. So my family founded the domain in the early 17th century, and we are the only winery still in the same family since that time. So I'm the 8th generation, and before that, my family was living in Italy. So I have a very far Italian background. Mm-hmm. And if you look to every of our label, you find the coat of arms of the family, because the part of family was coming from Italy. It was a very rich and important family in Italy, the Barberini. Yeah. And one member of the family was named Pope Urban VIII. And actually, because of that, in fact, he was accused of nepotism. So he just bring many members of the family to a very important place in politics and religion. Yeah. And when he died, what the next Pope want to do? Decrease the influence of our family. So two solutions at that time: kill all of us. That's the style.
Not nice,
or maybe
but okay, they do it.
Be more kind and send us away. So some member of the family arrived in France as ambassador. And 2 cardinals and one part of the family settled down in the Malocène. It's a beautiful village close to the Mont Ventoux. And they start to create a business of alchemistry. Mm-hmm. So if you go to Malocène, there is still a ghost house called the Barbarian House. Okay. And one member of the family fall in love with a woman. I don't know if he was falling or if they, at that time, they ended up a little bit different than now. But fall in love with a woman in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and they create La Solitude. And maybe I can just show one label.
Yeah, sure. We have a lot of different labels, but this is the family.
Yes, this is the most classic, well, not the most classic, but this one was created by my grandfather just after the Second World War. Okay. And so you have all, in fact, in every label, we take all that, but we put in different color, change the size. So you see the 3 bees. So that's the coat of the symbol of the family Barberini, the hat of the Pope Urban VIII, and the 2 nephews of the Pope who were cardinals. And I don't know if you can see that, but just there, on my grandfather's side, because La Solitude was a dowry. It was only going through women for many generations. But from my grandfather's side, they were in the army. So that's the symbol of the highest distinction in the French army, called Légion d'honneur. Yeah. And
So
Yes,
you're bringing
so
all this together in the labels. There's a lot of
yes, so
different
I
parts
think
of the history in one label.
all this, it's uh, you know, it's not we didn't create it coming from what we call heraldic. You know, it's
Yeah.
there is some rule, so it's really respect the rule. But my grandfather want to add you know one part of his family, so he puts
Yeah.
this medal.
Ah, it's nice story. I think it's as well thought through, but it's also very true to the family. So it's not the
Yes.
story that is just created. It's
No, it's
really,
not. It's not. It's a good marketing, but it's true
yeah,
marketing. That's the best
yeah.
one.
But that's the best marketing. It needs to be realistic, true, and identical. It has its own identity, and that's what it has. So that's, I think, really a good thing. So
So
and then
sorry.
how did it change into the winery as it is right now? Because that's quite some time after that, I guess.
Yeah. So in fact, we get a chance to. La Solitude was the dowry of the woman on my grandmother's side. So that was never divided in different pieces. And so we arrived to my grandfather. He was coming from north of France. So he met my grandmother. And so we are the first three generations was not coming by the woman's side.
Mm-hmm.
And during those many generations, we have so many, you know, or I can say that some generation were very interesting because they were in advance of that time. They create some special
Like
thing.
innovative or
Yeah,
yeah,
innovative or yeah, more
experimental,
clever than you know the
experimental
average.
maybe.
And so we have. I'm very proud of that, and I will talk a little bit later more closely of this point. But we were one of the first winery to use the label, early 1750, around 1750.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting because the wine was sold by barrel around you know the Europe,
Yeah.
and because of the rising of the bottling industry, if I can say that, we were at that time they were able to produce proper bottle and able to travel with those, to ship those bottles. And so my ancestor would say, yes, I want to create a name, and there was Vin de la Solitude. We are going to try this wine, not the first vintage, but one of the vintage later.
Yeah.
He gets this idea to put a name on the bottle and say, I'm proud of that. It's a sign of quality. It's a sign of origin. And there was
Yeah.
a long time before Châteauneuf-du-Pape was known as Châteauneuf-du-Pape, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
so,
and that comes back to the wine we're going to taste as well, huh? So that's what you
yes.
wanted to say.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to explain all that, I think,
Yeah.
when we are going to try the wine, because there's some very interesting point on the winemaking process and the story of full story of the label. And going back to the winery, the size of the domain doesn't change that much. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I think we lose our last olive tree in just after we get a very bad frost in 1956. So before that, we were growing vineyard and olive tree, but they were mixed planted actually. So
Combined through what just
yeah,
amongst each other.
yes, exactly. And so the size doesn't change a lot. So we are located in one of the best areas of Châteauneuf. We start on Crau. So Crau, it's of course very famous place of Châteauneuf-du-Pape because you have some iconic producer like Vieux Télégraphe who produce a cuvée Crau. So La Solitude starts on Crau and go down in his own monopole. It's called La Solitude. It's a 12.5 hectare of lieu-dit La Solitude and go up on a very similar plateau of Crau. It's called Le Boucou. So solitude means alone.
I'm showing the audience here something because most people will know what the Rhône is and what Southern Rhone is and Châteauneuf-du-Pape, but now you're talking about the village Châteauneuf-du-Pape and
Yes.
the vineyards around this. So this is the map that I took
Yes,
from your website.
Exactly. So basically, the Châteauneuf-du-Pape area is on the side of the Rhône River, and it's 4 different villages. And Domaine de la Solitude is located inside the Châteauneuf-du-Pape village, so the heart of Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
Yeah.
And do you want me to talk a little bit about the Rhône Valley, or?
Yeah, well, just for an overview, so just that the
Okay,
people get an idea what the difference between the north and the south is as well.
Yeah, it's a big area. We start nearly in Lyon and we nearly go down to the sea, both sides of the river Rhône. And you have a northern part and the southern part. The northern part is famous for Syrah and Viognier. You have Côte-Rôtie, Condrieu, Saint-Joseph, some great appellation. And the southern part is, of course, you have Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and you have also Gigondas, Vaqueras, other appellation, and it's more a Grenache dominant area with a blend of many different varieties. If you go to the northern part, you will be single variety, mostly Syrah for the red with a little bit of Viognier. And if you go south, it's a big blend. So in
it's the blending country, basically.
Yeah, it's a difficult country to understand with many grape varieties. So we use 13 different grape varieties in Châteauneuf. So to give you an overview, it's Châteauneuf is 3,300 hectares, spread in 3 different type of soil. So you have the galets roulés, one of the best examples is la Crau, sandy soil, and what we call limestone. So
I have, wait, this is with the sheep. I didn't want to show you that, but I have this one.
Yes, exactly. But I can show you a rock.
Yeah, you have the rocks. Oh, even better. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what the Châteauneuf-du-Pape area is also famous for.
Yeah, exactly. That's when people think about Châteauneuf-du-Pape, the first point it's those rocks, because when you walk on those vineyards, it's crazy. It's incredible the quantity of rocks. But Châteauneuf-du-Pape is not only that. It's the 2 biggest terroirs are rocks and sandy soil. If you think, for example, about Rayas, it's 100% sandy soils. 300 producer roughly, and 13 variety. So if you mix all that, Châteauneuf-du-Pape is a little bit Burgundy. So you have different exposure, different winemaking, different type of soil, different variety. It's very complex. So when you start to be interested by Châteauneuf, you never stop. You always find something different.
That's a nice thing. And also, what is the reason that there are so many different varieties being grown there and used in the blendings? Is it the same as, for example, in Bordeaux? It's got to do with the influence of the climate, the weather always, because they could not depend on 1 or 2 single varieties. But it's not the same, the reason why it ended up there, or?
Yeah, I think we have this tradition since ever of field blending. So I think in some areas they lose this tradition of field blending, so mixing different varieties in the same field. So generation after generation, they select and they encourage one specific variety. But if you look deeper in each wine area in France or Italy or most old world, you will find a lot of different varieties, but they are not known anymore. They are not grown anymore. And in Châteauneuf, because of this tradition of field blending, I think we keep that. And in fact, if we look to the red, the most important is of course the Grenache. After you have Syrah, Mourvèdre, Cinsault. So you have 4 grape varieties sprayed a little bit everywhere. And for the white, you have white Grenache, Clairette, Roussanne, and Bourboulin. So we have already 8 grape varieties used by most of the producers. And after you have some variety like Counoise, Picardin, terroirs. I think there is no really record about that, but when the phylloxera destroyed the vineyard around 1880, all France have to replant quickly because all the vineyards were dying, and we need to make money, so we need to survive.
New plants.
New plants. So before the phylloxera, I think the balance between all the grape variety was different, and maybe Grenache was less important. And the other small variety, but we are encouraged. But when we have to replant everything, Grenache is very easy to graft, and it's growing fast and producing quickly.
So it's a matter of getting back on your feet quickly.
Getting back on your feet, exactly. And we were lucky because it's a very interesting variety, the Grenache, because it's a grape who give a sense of a place. It's really a grape in the south of France who tell you where it's grown and the way you manage a vineyard.
Which grapes are we seeing here on the picture? This is not the Grenache, it's the Syrah?
No, it's a Grenache. 100% Grenache. And you can see at the back it's bush vine, so it's Grenache.
That's what tells the vines are typical also for the grapes.
We keep, in fact, at La Solitude, we are proud, and many producers keep that, and I'm happy with that. We are proud of the way we grow and manage our vineyard. It's really important. Because you have, you know, the modern way of managing a vineyard is to use a wire, trolleys, and to high density of plantation. But if you want to do a proper, if you want to grow in a good way, in a good manner, a vine of Grenache, first you need time and you need to use gobelet. Gobelet is the first and the unique way to get old vine in Châteauneuf. If you don't use gobelet with Grenache, we will never be able to have 100-year-old vine. After 50 years, the vineyard died. And to produce some very exclusive and very concentrate and special wine, you need to have old vineyard.
Here you can see one of the vines from close by, all right?
Yes, we are looking at a vine of Mourvèdre. You see the berries. The cluster are very close together. There is no space between the berries. We are looking at Mourvèdre. So Mourvèdre is one of, I think if we look to the future, Mourvèdre is one of the rising grape variety.
Okay.
Because in the past, you know, in my point of view, we are used to say the Mourvèdre were good maybe 1 year out of 3 years, because it's a late ripening grape variety, and often the weather conditions were bad after mid-September, so it was difficult to pick it ripe. But with the global warming, or weather conditions change a little bit, we didn't get this rain. We arrive always after 15th of September, so we are able to get a perfect ripening for the Mourvèdre, and they are very good to...
So the changing climate plays in the hand of the Mourvèdre, in this case?
Yeah, no, the climate change encourage, you know, increase the quantity of Mourvèdre. And we have also some grape variety who are very interesting, and they were not used for years. Not a vineyard of Châteauneuf or terroirs were planted in the last 20 or 30 years, but now we start to plant them again because they are grape variety who are able to be ripe in very dry and hot condition and produce, you know, a ripe berry at 12.5, 13% of alcohol. When we are looking at the Grenache, you know, the Grenache is ripe most of the time around 16. So it's a good way to balance this ripening.
Where do you get the plants? Because you said you're also replanting there those more uncommon varieties. So
I get from my background, you know, in tropical rainforest. In fact, I'm specialized in orchid. So I'm very interested about everything we look at the plant. So all my vineyard is planted with massal selection. I don't know, do you know what is massal selection?
No.
So we select some amount around the vineyard. We select our best old vine, and also we share some graft with other producer.
Yeah.
And I send them to the nursery, and so they produce some baby vines, some plant for me.
Yeah.
And to find those old grape variety, in fact, because we still have some very old vine field blended, so with different grape variety inside the same field, I still have all those grape variety like terroirs, Châteauneuf, Picardin. I just need to walk to vineyard and to choose a plant, send them to the nursery, and to get more of them.
So there are some left that you could use to reproduce.
Yes, and there is a nursery specialized, you know, in this very specific process. It's called Lilian-Berillon, and the cost of one plant from him is 3 times higher than a normal one, but he helps us to create and to select, you know, those old variety and to bring them back.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's the only way to, and still you're staying true to the origin, because you're using your own grapes, your own vines for that as well.
Because in the word, we always use this word terroir. Everyone says terroir. So in the terroir, of course, there is a way of growing, there is the soil, the exposure, the age of the vineyard, but there is also something very important, and nobody talks a lot about that, is back in the day, the grafting was made, you know, by the family. We never go to the nursery. So in fact, my old vine as the selection of my grandfather, we get from selection from maybe his father, from his father. So
it's a family legacy, basically.
All the history of the winery is inside the old vine. All the work of my ancestor. And when you lose that, you lose a big part of your history and your identity.
Yeah, that I totally understand, and I think that's also what makes it unique. And in some sort of way, it's difficult to, if you take over from your father or he took over, to get this knowledge across. But you learn because there is, let's say, this red line going through this, and also that goes in the vineyards where you see it in the vines, basically. So.
Yes.
Maybe it's a good moment to tell us a little bit about the different wines that you're producing right now, because you have quite a lot of different ones.
Yes. There is two schools in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. There is some producer who just produce one wine. And some producer like me, we get a lot of idea and a lot of like to experiment and produce many different wine with many different stories around this wine. So this one, it's the Châteauneuf Cuvée Tradition.
Yeah.
We produce this wine since 4th century, basically. That's the wine we did since ever. It's a blend of all our different terroirs, all our vineyard. Yeah. And after we decide to, so my uncle and my father decide to create some cuvée, and I add some more because I get some new idea. Yeah. So we have the cuvée Barberini, white and red. So the cuvée Barberini, name of my ancestor, should be our vieille vigne. So it's coming from our old vineyard, so more than 60-year-old vine of Grenache, Mourvèdre and Syrah, only grow on galets roulés and clay. Okay. So when you have galets roulés, you have clay in the ground, and that produces wine with more concentration, more richness. After we have I should bring all the bottle with me as I can show.
I have some. Which one do you want me to show?
Barberini.
Barberini. Okay, I can get that.
It's a nice blue label.
Yeah. I think I instantly got it. Well, the problem is my picture is very small.
Yeah, I'm big and you are small.
Yeah, I know, and I still don't know how to get it back. Something's changed here on Instagram. But you have a black label or no, blue, dark blue, is it right?
Dark blue label with the coat of arms of the family.
Yeah.
So I forget to say something.
By the way, for everybody, I'm going to post this all later on the Instagram and the post so that we all get to see it up close. But because it's really worth talking about the individual wines that you have, because there is a good history behind every wine that you produce.
Yes, exactly. It's very important. You create a wine, you think about it before, you know.
Yeah.
So we have the Cuvée Barberini, white and red. I forget to say something important for the one who don't really know well the south of France. Châteauneuf-du-Pape, it's a wine area famous for red. Yep. And that doesn't mean we don't produce some good white, but I would say 92% of the production is red and only 8% white. So we produce two different whites, Châteauneuf, and we have a big range of red. So we have tradition, the first label, white and red. I'm going to talk about the white later on. Yep. Barberini, selection of old vineyard from the Rocky, the galets roulés. So more concentration. It's a wine who need more time. You need to wait 4 or 5 years minimum before to open the bottle. Yeah. After we have Cornelia Costanza. Cornelia Costanza. If I were in Burgundy, that should be my Grand Cru. Okay. It's coming from, yes. The label is really inspired by the Burgundy label. It's all white, very classic.
Almost difficult to see, but the white label, yeah.
With the coat of arms of the family.
Yeah.
So this is coming from a vineyard planted just after the phylloxera, so around 1880, 1885. We have no record exact of the plantation, but it was before the 20th century, sorry. And it's a beautiful slope on the sandy soil with most of the vine survived that time. So it's like 80 or 90% of century-old vine. And it's a single vineyard. So it's really a photography of what's happened in this vineyard every year.
Well, you said it's a single vineyard wine, that one?
Yes.
Is the only single vineyard you produce, or are there more?
Yes, no, it's the only single vineyard I'm producing.
And that's typical because not a lot of producers, you already said in the AOC, they all, obviously it's the blending country, but a lot of them always stick to one red Châteauneuf-du-Pape. But then think about even taking single vineyard is not a common thing in the region for people to do.
No, it's something you can do only on the best vineyard and on a specific year.
Yeah.
So I have a friend. Hello, Matt. Nice to see you. Matt Walsh, a UK journalist.
Uh-huh.
Long time I haven't seen him. He's back to UK sadly. I'm sure you are missing the sun, Matt. So Cornelia Constanza, it's me who decided to create this wine in 2005 because I always had a special relation with this vineyard. There was a place where, when I was a children, I was always there to play, and it was my jungle, because the vines were bigger than me, a very nice canopy, those beautiful old ladies, and to me that was a magic place. And when I started to work, I said to my father and uncle, we should do something with this vineyard. That's the best vineyard we have. It deserves to be poor alone.
It needs to stand out from the rest.
Yes. So it's a big vineyard. So it's a 5-hectare vineyard. So we just select the best part of this vineyard, and we use to do the Cornelia Constanza. And
every year, or depending on the.
I will say, if I look in the last decade, there will be like 7 vintage out of 10. Because I never forget my, this need to be good every year,
Yeah.
So sometimes I need to bring all the best vineyard into the
it's about what the vintage brings you. And sometimes you can do this, and sometimes you can't, because you cannot abandon the one that you just showed us, because this is
exactly.
The volume is as well.
Even if we compare in terms of production, the Cornelia Constanza is only 3,000 bottles. Compared to my classic cuvée, who is 60,000 bottles, so it's a very different scale of production.
And everybody who gets used to that one wants it. If they want it next year, they want to find it. It's not possible to say, okay, I'm just gonna do at the half less, because then you instantly have a problem if you do that.
No, I think people understand, and it's a really higher in terms of price. So the wine is, is allocated by year, and it's
no, but I mean the other one. If you take let's say the first one you just showed us, if you would limit the production of that to half of it, you would a lot of people would probably look for it and don't find it.
Yes,
because it's more well known.
You know what? It's like there was not me, but in 2002 there was a horrible year in Châteauneuf. We get a flood. We get like 1 year of rain in 2 hours. So just before to start the harvest, so the vineyard was basically destroyed.
Yeah.
And I remember the car of Robert Parker, the famous journalist, was moved from the car park to directly the Rhône River. It was a little bit scary,
This bad? How bad? That's how bad it was.
That was very bad, and we didn't produce any bottle under our name.
Yeah.
Because the quality was not there, and you take generation to build a reputation, and you take decades, and sometimes if you feel it's not good enough, we work with the nature.
You have to make the decision to okay, you're bleeding because it's not bringing you any money that year, but it's better to do that than suffer from it from the years after.
And hopefully that doesn't happen every year. It's something very exceptional, but it's part of the job,
Yeah, and then we go from Constanza.
We go to Constanza to the wine we are going to
the one we're going to taste today.
Yes, Solitude. Solitude. So.
Now we already talked a little bit about it. You wanted to mention, but this is a bottle you also made, if I read it and believe correctly, in honor to one of your family members.
Yes, let me take something.
Yeah.
I like to show. So you see that?
The labels, yeah.
Yes, that's the original printing piece of paper we were using in the 18th century to make this wine. So
and that's the same label as you're using now?
Yes. So I decided, always facing in the office, we always have this label in the, on the wall.
On the wall, yeah.
It's part of our legacy, And, I was looking at that and I say, hey, we should do something with this label. I really like the design of the label and I like the history behind.
Yeah.
But so what I decided is let's look at all the wine was made at that time, what they were used to do the blend, the way they manage the harvest, and everything. And so I did my own research, and we find out, there is some very simple understanding, like no distemper, easy. There was no electricity. No distemper. No inox, no stainless steel, sorry. The use of a tank was difficult because they were in wood or dig in the ground, in the rocks, with some glass part stick on it. It's difficult to explain, but it was so not too many tanks. No working force coming from outside, so the harvests were managed by the local team. So a very slow way to picking the grape, very long harvest.
So you're adding, and this is sort of the story, but you're adding different grapes in different periods.
So in fact, we pick all the variety when they are ripe, and we add all those variety in the same tank, so week after week, and all cluster. Of course, we don't use any yeast, or it's very natural fermentation. And at that time, 18th century, when they were finishing the harvest, they take a lot of their energy, and they have to go back to, taking care of the olive field, the sheep, everything. So I always hear my grandmother, I bring them back, They do a very nice job for me. They cut the grass. It's natural fertilization. It's free.
Yeah, but it's nice, They're just walking around through the vineyards, huh?
Yeah. It's I think I started to do that in 2015 for the first time again. And not many people in Châteauneuf do that. We share all the vineyard, and we bring many cattle of sheep for all the winter. So, but let's go back to the wine. So all the grape variety mixed together, all cluster. And when we finish the harvest, my grandmother always says that when they were finishing the harvest, they were loading the tank with some juice, some wine from the previous vintage, selling the tank with clay, and go hunting, picking the olive. And just before Christmas, they dig out the tank, and I'm sure at that time maybe 30% of the wine were vinegar, but some of those wine were magical, I promise you. So I decided to do this winemaking process. So all the grape in all cluster together, a very long maceration, because the maceration on this wine, it's this vintage we did 90 days. We dig out the tank just the last week before Christmas. And so every week I'm testing the wine, because I want sure it doesn't produce any vinegar. But we load the tank with some wine of the previous vintage. We seal the tank, and it's a very soft extraction, but very long. And in fact, that's a little bit a crazy story, because when I get this idea, as a winemaker of La Solitude, I am also someone who is in charge of the vineyard with me. We have the same, studying, and we share really the passion of making wine, and also we have a consultant. So when I decide to create this wine, after 40 days, they say, "Hey, Florent, the wine tastes good. We should empty the tank." No.
It's time now. We do it.
After 50 days, they say, "Florent, you are crazy. The wine starts to taste like shit. You are going to miss out everything. It's not possible." Dig out. No. I was very strong on the point. I want to wait, before Christmas. And we learned something, and actually nobody tells us that at winemaking school. If you look at when the level of alcohol is increased, you have the level of extraction of the tannins will increase also. And you arrive at a peak, and at the same time, you try to soften those tannins. So you do some pump over, you stir the lees, you add some oxygen. So you have different ways to soften your tannins.
To balance it.
And when you arrive at the point you think you have extracted all you need, you empty the tank and you press. But when you pass this point, we were thinking, I still think you extract everything. So you extract even some tannins you don't want. So your wine is rough. A lot of tannins
first.
And what we learn, it's after like 50 days, 55 days, there is a kind of fining. So the tannins, the ash tannins, they start to combine with the lees, and they start to fall down inside the tank. So instead of getting a very strong and tannic wine, we have a very floral, aromatic, and soft wine. So that's opposite than what we expect at the beginning.
Nobody
and if I was, if I was not silly and just say, oh yes, it's a bad, it's a stupid.
You listen to him.
Yeah, listen to everyone. We will never discover that. So.
And it's funny because this is the second vintage that you produce for this wine.
No, it's the first. No, it's. I don't know which vintage do you
I
have.
have 18, I think, but 17 is
Yes,
the first.
yeah. So 16, 17, 18. That's the
Okay,
third vintage.
this is 18. So you have 3 vintages of this now.
Yes, and we are very. I'm very happy with what I found, and I keep this process.
We're gonna taste it in a minute, but you only produce for this one 1,600 bottles.
Yes, we increase because in fact, that's the size of the tank, basically.
Yeah.
And no.
So you have only one tank, and then that's it. Yeah.
No, I buy a bigger tank, and I have enough of those good grape to increase a little bit the quality. So we increase the production a little bit. So now we produce around 3,000 bottles.
Okay.
That will be the maximum. And in fact, since 2015, I'm working to create a white, but I never achieve it. But
this is your other ultimate goal.
Yeah, no, one of them. And I think this year we finally find a way to create something very interesting.
But we should taste now, because somebody's saying curious to taste, but we are the lucky ones. You drink it more often, but for me it's the first time, and I tried to stay away from it because it was standing here for some time, but I smelled at it a couple of times. I couldn't take my nose off of it. It's like
it's something, it's I think if you don't know if it's coming from Châteauneuf, you never guess it. In fact, this wine, it's a classic before the classic, in fact.
Yeah, so even before there was Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
Yeah, actually Châteauneuf was named Châteauneuf-Calcernier. So at that time,
so this is the 1.0 in the Châteauneuf-du-Pape. What after is 2.0, basically. Very different. It's not comparable, basically.
Yes, and also the Grenache is not dominant.
That's an interesting story, yeah, because now Grenache is the dominant grape, and it was not.
It's Counoise. I decided, in fact, to go on some grape variety who are not used a lot, and some of the Counoise, for sure, before the Phylloxera was a lot more in quantity in every blend in Châteauneuf than now. So that's why I decided to use.
Can you show the bottle? Can you show the bottle one more time? Because I'm still very small, I know. For the people,
if you look at the bottle, it's a strange bottle, but actually, that's the bottle with that exactly the design of the bottle closer to the bottle we were using at that time.
And the wax, obviously.
Yeah, wax. Yeah, hard wax. Sorry for the sound. I use hard wax, difficult to break, but there were no soft wax in the 17th century.
No, so you have to stay true to the story. But that was,
and you know what I'm planning? I'm planning to. I don't know if you know about that, but now there is some delivery by boat, but the boat doesn't use oil anymore. They use the wind, like in the past. So this wine will be delivered outside France.
With a sailing
of course,
ship.
If I can in this country, by a wind boat, it should be
with
fun.
A sailing ship only.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good story. I love it. But now tell us what we're going to taste, because, well, people are obviously very curious, and like you said, it's not traditional for Châteauneuf-du-Pape, this.
No, so to me, I think we go a little bit in Burgundy. We smell a lot of, it's very floral, a lot of small blackberries on the nose. It's not too ripe, it's not overripe, it's not jammy, like sometimes you can find in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. You have a little bit of oak taste also, because this one is aged for 18 months in an old barrel. The tannins are very soft, elegant, a little bit with a little bit of grip at the end.
Yeah.
So to me, we are really on the fresh expression of a Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
So you were saying earlier before, it's comparable, and I saw it in the review. I think one of the two is comparable with a Grand Cru, basically.
Yeah, you know what? It's Jeb Donug who says that on the 2018 vintage. And to my friend, when I make some joke, I say it's my Grand Cru of Burgundy all the time. But I'm very, sometime in your life, some people say something about you or your wine, and you say, oh, That's exactly what I mean and what I want to hear. So that was it was very kind for him to say that.
But
And
it sticks to you. This is something that lasts and people recognize it.
yes, so the style is very unique. But what do you think? I don't see your face, but
Well, I can tell you that I'm very happy.
okay.
Unluckily, this image is very small. It's a problem I have with Instagram since the last show, so still not sure how to get it back. But as I was reading the story, and this is actually a bad thing, so you should never read the story first. You should just go for the wine, smell it, and then drink it, and then afterwards you can read the
Look at the
story.
story. So
Yeah,
yeah, but when you read the story, you have already falling in love a little bit with the wine. So.
and that's what I wanted to say. And this weekend is Valentine's Day. So what
Yeah,
I wanted to say for everybody who does not have a present yet, this would be, I think, maybe not to say anything bad about your other wines, but this would be one of the best Valentine gifts that they can buy from you, I think.
oh yeah, I agree. But
Because also the floralness, etc., is really, yeah. I mean, like I said, if you smell it, it's already, the nose is already on itself is getting you,
yes,
yeah, really intoxicated in a good way, not in a bad way, but it's addictive. But people have to be look for it very well because you don't make a lot of bottles, as you said. You only
yes.
have one tank.
I don't remember how many bottles were shipped to Netherlands, but something like 90 bottles.
I don't think that many. No. I talked to the importer and they said to
Maybe
me,
60. Yeah, it's actually it's my assistant who takes the allocation. So I always say yes, but he always say no. So at the end, I don't know.
in the end, everybody is unsatisfied. Everybody wants a little bit more, but yeah, that's how
Yeah,
it
but it's a
goes,
good
right?
problem. It's difficult at the time because I don't, as a producer, you don't like to say no, but it's a good sign of quality. So
I agree. But it's nice that you took all these things from the history, from the family, but also from winemaking. You brought it back alive, basically, in this
yes,
wine.
so
So
it's
you're bringing
really
something back into the current day at the moment, which was
yeah,
gone.
it's a piece of history. In fact, this
Yeah.
wine. It's really
And that's good because you can keep on producing your standard, quote unquote standard, because
yes,
it's not saying anything bad, but like all the other producers are doing, or most of them, and stick to that. But this experimenting also gives you a uniqueness and identity next to that as well.
yeah. I think many people talk about this wine as our flagship. People
But
always remember of this wine. So
but it's, yeah, I agree. I would say on one end, on the other end, it's a wine on its own. It's not. To be honest, I cannot. If I look at the rest of the lineup, I cannot compare. You don't need
yeah,
to
yeah,
want
it's
to
a bit
compare it with the
special.
other
It's
ones
yeah.
because
And so let's move to the
90 bottles says
hey Ralph,
Ralph.
there is Ralph.
90.
90 bottles. He checked Ralph. He just says there is.
He didn't sell all of them yet, so people can still buy it if they want it. It's
I hope so.
or maybe
I don't
Ralph
know.
already sold 90.
Yes, there was. Maybe next year, yeah, Ralph, you will have 120.
Ah,
I
good.
will do
Now
my
after
best.
this show, you need 30 more for sure.
Uh,
Magnums he needs.
yes, you will have some Magnum. I promise you. We'll talk
Good.
about that later. We will.
But you make Magnums, a couple of Magnums for this one as
Yes,
well.
yes. In fact, it's something because this wine is only sell on allocation. I ask all my clients. I say, hey, listen, you can have 120 bottle. Let me know how many Magnum and bottle you want. Spray.
Yeah,
The total need to be 120. So
yeah,
if you want 10 Magnum, you take 100 bottle.
yeah.
And it's a nice way. I do one bottling. It's a nice way to please everyone.
Yeah, I think it's a good way. I mean, I think, like you said, and we had a couple of weeks ago, Bill also talking with them in the same way that it's difficult if you're becoming popular or you have a popular wine, and they have the same thing with the Bill Lurton. They never make enough, and people always ask them, why don't you make more? But it's sticking true to your identity. In this
Yeah,
case, you
exactly.
can't
You
do
cannot.
more.
It's
Yeah. So allocation, I mean, yeah, it's not always nice, but it's what it is. And the people that really are a fan or really want to experience will find it at some point. I mean,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
in the market there. Okay, good, great wine. So I have let's go and see if we have some questions. I already have one. Would you like to make wine in the north of France as well, as your grandparents are from there?
Oh, actually, my grandparents, my
Oh, they
grandfather
are from old.
was from close to Alsace, but he was not producing wine. He was taking care of a cattle of cow, so they were farmer.
Yeah,
And actually, I'm quite. I like to always bring some new idea, realize some new thing, but I'm not really into increasing the size of my vineyard because I can I can find opportunity to make wine in the north or maybe in the US and or who knows in China. But what really pleased me is to, I'm at a size where I can be in the vineyard in the morning, go back to the office. I can have,
yeah.
the
All
full
around your
spectrum
house.
of the job. Selling the wine, do some office, even if I don't really know that. But when I
Yeah.
talk to nice people like Ralph, it's good. But and also managing the vineyard. If you go to, if you start to be too big, I will be always in my office and I will lose my soul.
And you will miss these ones as well.
Yeah, it's just there, sleeping on the side.
Yeah, I know how to make people smile. I just take pictures of their dogs and I will show them because these are the family dogs, right?
Yeah, they are more famous than me. If you look on Google and you say Domaine de la Solitude, there is more picture of the dogs than me. So,
And the sheep as well, but the dog
yeah,
is more famous. Yeah. So, question: would you like to make a white wine? Well, you have one, but would you like to produce another one? You talked about this one that you want to make a white one
yeah.
out of, maybe, or comparable white one.
Yeah, so I didn't talk about the wine. It's a white wine. It's always a blend in Châteauneuf. So à la Solitude, we use Clairette, Roussanne, Bourboulenc, Picpoul, and white Grenache.
Mm-hmm.
And each grape, have some specificity. And for example, the Clairette brings the acidity, the freshness.
Mm-hmm.
The Roussanne brings the aromatic, the mouthful feeling. And you create a balance by blending different variety. It's very difficult. There's very few single variety or single vineyard of white in Châteauneuf.
Yeah.
And
But because even the Viognier in the north,
no, yes,
they are
you have the
planted
Viognier.
amongst the Syrah, so they are not
Yes.
specific vineyards.
Yeah, in
Most
fact, no. If you go to Côte Rôtie, you have a small part of Viognier in the
Yeah.
Syrah. I think they are allowed to something like 50%, 15% maximum. But you can go to Condrieu and you find some 100% Viognier.
Yeah.
Condrieu, it's and you go to Coteau de Vernon and you find the origin of the Viognier.
Yeah.
The only vineyard left of Viognier was there.
So in the rest of the Rhône, it's you hardly find any single vineyards white, any grape varieties.
Oh, you have one, Clairette de Die. But after, yes, it's most of, and I think it's really maybe if it's more difficult to understand for people who doesn't know about wine because people like to buy a variety, say, oh, I like Chardonnay, I buy Chardonnay. So it's make everything a little bit more difficult. Yeah. But for the global warming, it's really a chance to be able to use different variety because we always, we have, for example, for the white, we have the Bourboulenc.
Yeah.
The Bourboulenc, even if it's 40 degrees for 3 months with no rain,
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It will be ripe at 12 maximum. That's it. Never go higher. So you balance your Grenache, white Grenache at 16 or your Roussanne, you can easily burn. So the blending of different grape is really a good way to be there in 20 years when we will gain 2 degrees. Suddenly.
So another white blend is an option and is something you're always looking into. Maybe.
Yes. In fact, I'm working on the Vin de la Solitude white. There will be a blend of trigger variety, but it's not. It will be the final decision for this one will be made in June. So
you never ask. I learned one time. You never ask an artist when it's finished.
Yeah, because if it's something goes wrong after, you don't want to.
Yeah, but it's never finished. You always find something you want to improve, maybe, or change, or then you look at it the next day and then you think,
yes.
It's not really ready, but okay, it's a project that you're working on, and that's really getting into the final phase. Let's put it like that.
Yes.
So what do you want
Um,
your winery in 10 years from now is the question.
so I have a lot of idea, but I think one of my goal is, as I said already, is really I want to respect the environment. I want to respect the nature. You know, who really feed me. I'm working with the nature. So one of my
Hmm.
goal in 10 years, I want to be 100% carbon free.
Yeah.
I want to
So
have
there comes the
only,
sailing ship.
yes, selling cheap, only tractor who work with electricity, maybe by, you know, I still need to use some glass and cardboard. So
Yeah.
maybe buying some forest to store the carbon. And we already, if I look on the vineyard, what we achieve already, we are now, we will be certified organic. We are in the process of biodynamic certification.
Hmm.
So I think we, step after step, we arrive to where I want to be, to have a really a vineyard, healthy vineyard. We will create some wine with a sense of a place. On the winemaking process, year after year, I start to remove things. So now we, for the in the past, we were using, we were not too much product. We produce with grape and the yeast, but now we use only natural yeast. We don't
Yeah.
know any débourbage, so we work with all clusters. So my goal is to create a wine with everything. I don't like to waste something. So I don't want to remove the stem. I don't
Yeah.
want to remove the leaves, and I try to make something good with all I have.
Yeah.
And I
So
think that
that's an ongoing process we're
yes,
always looking into. Okay. I got a question from our guest from last week, because I always ask a question from the previous guest for the next guest. So last week we were talking with Widman, and they were talking about wine library and old bottles.
yes.
And now you have obviously a very old domain. So the question was, so maybe you can already think about what the question is, but the question is, what is the oldest bottle that you have
Oh yeah, it's a big
in the
question.
wine library?
So I'm very sad about that because I know in Germany I have some friends who work in Germany and they get some bottle of 3 century old nearly. At La Solitude, our oldest bottle are from the 50s.
Okay.
And if in the world there is still some bottle older than that, I just buy them.
Yeah,
Not
it
with
doesn't
me.
matter what the price is, you will get it back.
So again?
I said it doesn't matter what they want for it in price, you will get it back. You want it to be in the.
Yeah, because in fact, you know, I think it's really depending the family. In my family, before my grandfather, there were no tradition of storing the wine.
No, they just sell it because they need the
They sell
money, and
it.
they.
So and they were used to get always some old wine, but they were drinking it. In fact, after 20 years, the old wine were drunk. So it was
Yeah.
when we. It's really. I think it's really in the 80s we really understand. We need to build a library stock. We need to have
Yeah.
some record of what we did, and
So
know
you
every
started
year.
doing that as well in the 80s then.
Yes, and now I really store, you know, 300 bottle of each
Yeah.
vintage. Even it's good or bad, you know, I store them. I don't want to
Yeah.
sell them.
I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Next week we are going to go to the Pfalz in Germany, actually to Von Winning winery. I don't know if you know them, but they're
Yeah.
in Deidesheim, and Deidesheim is in Forst. Forst is nicknamed the you're gonna laugh at me, the Pudding Muttersche from Germany.
Ah.
Maybe you heard of it, but that's because the soil is very comparable. But they produce a lot of different wines. So they're obviously main producer for Riesling, but they also make a Pinot Noir. They have a Chardonnay. They have quite an extensive selection. What would be a question, and you can think about it a couple of minutes. You don't have to tell me now, so it gives you some time. A question you want to ask them because we're in
I
a very different
already
region.
have my question.
Oh, tell me.
So, do you already feel the global warming, and do you think it's something good for your vineyard or something bad? Because it's really depending the place.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
for
agree.
you, 2 or 3 degrees higher will help you to produce more structured wine, more, you know, ripe.
I'm sure they have a nice answer to that because I know that they're always working on that. And like you said, in some countries and regions, it's affecting more. And also that's why in France they just recently announced that in Bordeaux they allowed the new grape varieties,
Yeah, good variety.
Merlot, for instance. So it says enough when you're very traditional that you allow to
Yeah, to
add
change the
new.
grape variety.
Yeah, but it's a good question. So we're gonna ask them and see what they come up with. So let's see if there's any other questions from the audience, because I think I answered the ones that are there right now. So if anybody else is watching and still has some questions, please go ahead and do ask them. Next to that, I think what is important also maybe for the people to know, where is your wine available? So there are people from multiple countries watching here, Holland obviously, but there's also other countries. Which other countries you're exporting to mainly?
So I'm very into selling a bottle of my wine everywhere, in every country of the world. So you can find my wine in all the European country. Like, yeah, all of them. You can find my wine in Northern America, even in Southern America, like Brazil or Brazil. Yes, mostly Brazil. You can find my wine in Asia, like all the countries of Asia, China. This week to Bangkok, so Thailand. I ship also some wine in Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan.
Do you see a change? Do you see a change in the countries where there is increasing demand for your wines?
Yes, actually, I think there is a process. So people start to be interesting about wine, and first you have the big name who arrive, and after 5-6 years, they start to want something different. They start to look at small appellation or more high-end wine. And actually, I'm surprised. For example, I'm surprised how successful I am in Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
You would not think about it. But...
I'm selling a lot of wine in Macedonia. At the beginning, you don't expect to sell that quantity of wine in Macedonia. Or Taiwan is they really love the Châteauneuf-du-Pape at the moment.
So in a couple of years,
and I know for 5 years, 6 years, the demand will increase, and after there will be more stable, and you will have another country will rise.
Yeah.
Actually, Russia is very good also.
So this is what you see in these countries you mentioned, is that after a couple of years, let's say 5 years, there is the period where, you get let's say...
There's a rising and we arrive at a plateau, and we stay like that for a long time, but...
It's very interesting because you're naming very exotic countries, obviously.
Yes, but there is also, to me, they always surprise me to sell quite a lot of wine in Italy or Spain also, who also make wine and some fantastic wine.
Is there a wine you're jealous of, a wine you would love to have made? So which piece of art in the wine world would you like to call your own?
I mean, I'm not...
It doesn't need to be. Maybe you want to make your own wine.
I'm not jealous because I'm lucky enough to don't have to be jealous. You have a long history. But sometimes, and that doesn't happen often. But the last time was a long time ago, and I was with an Australian wine. I don't know if you know this producer called Clarendon Hills.
No.
In
Australia?
In Australia, yes.
Yeah.
And I remember I was drinking this. He's producing some Grenache, some very good Grenache. And I was drinking this wine, and I was with some friend, and I was saying, I need to go back to work. I'm missing something. This guy produced such a good Grenache at the other side of the world. It really kicked me. Say, don't stay where you are. Grenache,
my friend. So you know what you're talking about, and then you're tasting something from Australia. And it surprises you this much.
Yes. Yeah, it.
There you go. Very good.
And there is some very nice, if you know wine from this place of the world. Bas Philippe produce some amazing Pinot. If I was a producer in the new world, I want to be a Bas Philippe.
So you also like to go and travel these places and see those vineyards, or is this something you do frequently, or try to do frequently?
Yes, I mean, it's the wine world is a small world, and most of the wine producers are nice guys. So it's always nice when you travel and meet some other
If you want, and this is the good thing, if you're in the different parts of the world, you can help them, for example, with the harvest when it's your time. And
So
I
did that when I was younger. I did that actually. I went to work in New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah, and that's really a nice thing. I mean, this is how you also learn different things and how you build friendships with other people as well.
And you know what? I think when I was in Australia, there was maybe the winery where I was working was producing good wine. It was called Yearing Station. And the winemaker, Tom Carson, every day was bringing some bottle from everywhere, from Australia, from New Zealand, from all around the world. And I realized something when I was there. It was, they were always talking, the winemaker and the people working in the winery, they were always talking about the history of the winery. And all this wine was different because of history, the place wine was grown. And I realized, it's over there, it's such something important to keep your history, keep your tradition.
Yeah.
Don't try to follow, the style of the trend, be different. You need to stick to what you are when you have a nice history, like a producer in Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
I think it's a really nice way to close up this session, because it brings us back to, at some point, people take things for granted because it's always been there. And France is a country that is known for wines for centuries and is the epicenter of wine. But if you live in the middle of it, you forget sometimes.
You forget why it's like that.
Yeah. And if you go to Australia, where it's different, they don't have this history, or New Zealand or the US even, then you cherish it. And also when I talk to people enjoying wine, drinking wine, studying wine from the US, you feel privileged. This is the feeling I have, that I can buy basically all these wines.
You understand, you don't have to go, to be modern and to do the same as everyone do in the world. Just your history is really important, and it's part of your wine. And people drink this wine because of this tradition, this history, and of course the quality. But
I think it's a nice way to conclude. Let's cheers to that as well. I'm still very small, but enjoyed this interview. So thank you very much for your time, Florent.
It was my pleasure. It was a very nice talk, and I hope to meet you one day in Netherlands, or if you come to Châteauneuf, give me a call.
It's on my list of regions to visit, and then I'm sure I will give you a heads up to see the dogs, to see the vineyards, to see you.
Spend a day and a lunch. We spend a day and a lunch together, and
you can put me to work there as well, so I can learn a little bit about. Very good.
I will put you to work in the galets roulés, in the rocks.
Very good. I will carry the rocks. Thank you, Florent. Have a nice evening, and
you too.
Talk soon.
Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye. So everybody, thank you for tuning in, and of course, there still is the issue with the image being small in the top, but trying to see how we can fix that on Instagram next time. Next week we're going to talk about Von Winning winery from the Vals, so a very different type of wine region as well. So I hope you enjoyed it, and you had a good time with Florent and with me. We talked about a very special wine today, and I can only encourage everybody to try to taste a bottle of Domaine Solitude, and if you can, even try to get this one. But it's a piece of art, so they're hard to come by. But thank you everybody for watching, and next week on Friday we're back 7:30 again, talking to Germany.